Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Blissed? Dr. Shealy, are you blissed? Back from a whirlwind seminar series, right, Dr. Shealy?
Yeah, I just got back last night about 7 o'clock. And I leave again this Friday for another one.
Yeah, and now if I'm not mistaken, you learned and talked about health, of course, and you were with Dr. Mercola, Dr. Soren.
Yeah, on the same program, right?
Yep. In attendance was Dr. M.L. Shane, one of us.
By the way, she was there. Yeah.
Yeah. And I understand that one of the things that was being discussed was brain restoration. Is that correct?
Well, that was my whole talk was on brain restoration and essentially repair, regrowth, etc. Plasticity.
Elasticity of the brain?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, that's a term that we use in economics. Elasticity, of the money supply and things like that.
Exactly.
Quite fascinating. Are you able to share with us some of that presentation for those who are interested in brain restoration? Because I certainly am. Well,
I'm happy to do that, of course. Basically, I'll get out my slides and I can sort of give you, without you being able to see what I'm saying, but at least I can read the slides, because most of them are just messages and PowerPoint. Basically, I start off by saying we need to recognize that the brain is very plastic, adaptable, and can regenerate. But you've got to have good normal health habits for it to happen. You've got to have good nutrition for it to happen. You've got to have physical exercise for it to happen. But there are electrical adjuncts, which I've worked with now for 50 years. There are emotional adjuncts, and there are spiritual essentials. So basically, you have to work to overcome stress, anxiety, and depression in order to have it happen. But when we're born, we have 2,500 synapses, that is, that many connections of every neuron in the brain. But by age 3, we have 15,000 connections for every nerve cell in our brain. But by the time we get to adulthood, we're back down to 7,500. Now, every cell in your body is replaced within a maximum of 7 years, and brain cells do take 7 years. But as long as your telomeres are good, you will replace your brain cells every 7 years with new ones that are just as good as they were before. Now, eventually, if you have crummy health habits, your telomeres begin to wear out way early. It can start at age 50. If you've got good health habits, your telomeres will keep your brain cells repairing themselves well into the 90s. It's that simple. But
so, Dr. Shealy, is that why sometimes, not really often, but you'll hear a younger person talking about a person maybe in his or her 80s or 90s, and the term, he's as sharp as a tack or she's as sharp as a tack. Those people that they're referring to are the ones with the good health habits that...
Almost inevitably. Uh-huh. On the other hand, I was taught in medical school that there are no conscious, voluntary nerves to the bladder or the bowel. They're fed by the automatic or autonomic nervous system, apparently. And yet we are trained through habits as a young child between age 3 and 5. Almost everyone is trained to gain control over the bladder and bowel. That is a new learning and a new nervous system for control of bladder and bowel. We've known you can learn all kinds of new skills throughout life, languages, habits. All of these things involve creating new connections in your brain. Now, here's what I have one slide called brain rot. Brain rot is caused by inactivity, watching TV, use of cell phones, boredom, and anger, anxiety, guilt, and depression. All of these are the things that cause us to lose brain cells and capacity rather than to grow new ones. And there's all kinds of evidence of this. In fact, I did research with Sir John Eccles back in 1961, in which we, in cats, took the nerve from the biceps and sewed it into the triceps, and the one from the triceps back into the biceps. And after they walked around with that for 6 months, the nerve cells in the spinal cord changed. And, in other words, just the use of them by a different muscle message changed their own cells. So a biceps neuron became a triceps neuron, and a triceps neuron became a biceps neuron. That's how plastic and adaptable the brain can be.
I'm listening extremely intently, Dr. Shealy, and as you said, you're talking about anxiety, guilt, depression, television, cell phones. I was thinking about the people who I know who are young who don't know as much as I think they should know.
Because they spend all their time on the stupid dumb phone.
Yes.
When I call them a dumb phone, I am not just being facetious. I think they make you dumb.
I absolutely agree with you. There's no question in my mind. I've said in person to people, okay, all right, so just ask any young person, any millennial, to estimate how far it is to over to there, wherever over there is, or how heavy it is. They can't do it. They can't estimate. They don't have those skills because it requires a different type of thinking than looking at your phone and typing with your thumbs and asking a question and reading and regurgitating back an answer.
At the top of my list for retraining the brain is thinking. You have to think in order to produce new neurons. You have to visualize, create the image in your mind. That's why radio is infinitely better for you than television, because when you hear something, you have to create an image to go with it.
When I was very young, my dad, this was in the early days of talk radio. My dad said, why don't you listen to this program? It's kind of interesting. And I really was more interested in listening to rock and roll, the Beatles, the Beach Boys, things like that, which really didn't do anything for me, right? But I heeded his advice, and I listened to talk radio, and I learned a whole bunch of things. And I believe that you are absolutely correct that radio expands your mind, whereas television does not. I've been asked, I've been asked to do a video of me in the studio, and I refuse to do it. Except if I'm audited. If I'm audited by the IRS again, I will do a video of the broadcast with the IRS auditor to give the auditor full credit. Other than that, I really don't want to change the format of USA Prepares to a video television program. But I can tell you this, that there are others who have, and they have, their video cameras, and their ratings are higher. But I'm not interested in doing that. I really want this broadcast to be the theater of the mind. I really want this broadcast to teach things. None of us is getting paid for it. It's not like, there are advertisers throwing money at us. As a matter of fact, I don't have any advertisers that are throwing money at me, and have not for years. But that's not the point. The point is this is designed to be educational, period. And I really believe it works. And I can say that with certainty because I believe that my association with you, Dr. Shealy, and some of our other instructors has taught me so much that I've gotten smarter rather than dumber through the association of radio. Because, frankly, class, it's like this. I'm sitting in a studio, just me, okay? And I've got some computers, but on the other end, through audio, through my headphones, I'm listening to Dr. Shealy and his wisdom. And he's teaching me at the same time he's teaching you. The only difference is I get to ask questions. But you get to ask questions, too, if you call in. Okay? So this is, to me, I'm in school 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, learning and preparing. So figure another couple of hours in preparing for the broadcast, answering questions, returning telephone calls. So I'm learning 4 hours a day. That's more. That's more than a child spends in elementary, middle school, or high school actually in class, learning. Because although they're there more hours, they're not learning during all those hours, but I am. And I know more than I knew before I started broadcasting. And I know more than I knew before I started listening to the radio. And I can tell you this, if you watch television and, you just, someone puts you in a room and says, you watch some TV, and you watch TV, and then they come back after the program's over and they say, tell me what the plot was all about. I don't know.
Good luck.
Right. So I'm convinced that what you said is absolutely true. Can we continue with this on the other side of the break, Dr. Shealy? Elasticity of the brain. Quite fascinating. Let's get smarter. Literally. We'll be right back. Dr. Shealy's with us, medical doctor, and he's telling us about the seminar that he gave last few days. And we're talking about regeneration of the brain and elasticity of the brain. This is an absolutely fascinating subject. So if you're listening closely, class, you are hearing what you can do to get smarter. And that would be my word, getting smarter.
Well, you're right, and learn all kinds of things. And the next thing on my list is movement. Every specific movement that you do, especially those that involve a skill, such as the use of a screwdriver, the use of a fork, or whatever, improves brain function, and you develop new connections. Remember, we talked about synapses, connections of each nerve cell. So the more you do physically, the more you can connect. And then I began talking about the different frequencies of brain activity. If people are paying attention to us right now, they're in the frequency that's called beta. Beta is from 13 to the low 20s, 21 or 22 cycles per second. Now, interestingly, beta range, it still goes up to 30, but anything above 31, anything above 23 is anxiety. But beta keeps you focused and learning and produces a chemical called dopamine. Alpha produces acetylcholine, and this is quieting the mind, detaching, reducing anxiety. Theta actually you relax even deeper, but that's when you begin to have creative imagery. That's where a lot of original ideas come in, and a lot of creativity when you go into the theta, which is from 4 to 7 cycles per second. And, of course, delta is the deepest relaxation just before you fall asleep. That's involved with serotonin, which becomes melatonin if you go a little deeper. And that's the deepest of all relaxation. But my favorite, of course, is gamma, which produces something called anandamide. And anandam means bliss. And that is optimal 40 cycles per second, although the gamma range goes from 31 to 100. The optimal in the zone is 40 cycles per second. Now, these are certain things that can assist you with improving brain function and helping to develop new cells. Physical exercise, curcumin, B-complex, astaxanthin, ginkgo biloba. These are natural things that can help new brain growth. The broccoli family, they have a type of organic sulfur called sulforaphane. Regular sexual activity, vegetables, fruits, salmon, lithium orotate, stress reduction, music, all of these are tunes for fine tuning, if you will, your brain itself. Tyrosine, which helps you make norepinephrine and adrenaline, magnesium, D3, vitamin C, and, of course, my favorite of all, the Shealy Soren Chakra Suite pulsed electromagnetic frequency device. So there's all kinds of plasticity and elasticity and new growth of brain functions. But reading and exercise and learning and thinking are the big ones. And then I went into
Dr. Shealy,
yep.
I just had a question. So when I am trying to figure something out and it's complex, here at the farm, let's say I'm going to rewire something and there's a significant level of complexity. What I'll say to Mrs. Finelli, I'll be working on the project and then I'll say, I want to sleep on it. I want to think about it. Or sometimes I will lie down and close my eyes and I will be able to visualize what I'm trying to do more clearly, more deliberately, more precisely. I shut out all other thoughts, and I'm able to design, create, and innovate much better. But, for someone, watching me, it looks like I'm abandoning ship saying, you know what? What I do is I say, I'm not ready. I don't have the design in my mind yet. I have to work on it. I work on it while I'm, lying down, and it comes to me. Can we talk about that when we come back? Dr. Norman Shealy's with us, normshealy.com, NORMSHEALY.com. Dr. Shealy is a medical doctor, brain surgeon, Surgeon of the Year, author of well over 30 books, travels internationally, speaks on health and wellness. And we're talking about one of the seminars that he just gave in the last few days, and you're getting the highlights of it right here on USA Prepares. Dr. Shealy, I mentioned that when I have to figure something out that's complex and I can't bang it out really quickly, I will lie down, close my eyes, and think about it at a different level, which is what you were talking about with the quieting of the mind. And I am able to figure it out and come up with, in my opinion, a pretty good design. But if somebody watches me, if someone sees me, if there were a camera on me in our house and they watched me and Mrs. Finelli talk about, I'm going to work on it, I'll tell you what, let me lie down and I will come up with the answer. It will look like I am abandoning all my responsibility and just taking a nap. But that's not the case.
You're really going into theta. That's the creative state, creative visualization, and that's 4 to 7 cycles per second. And that's where you, what I call daydream. And,
Yes.
That would be a perfect one.
And Dr. Shealy, when you are creating your inventions, do you do something similar to that? Or how does it work for you?
Mine also come when I'm in the zone, which is the 40 cycle activity. So I'm wide awake, but perfectly detached, and just sort of in a super state of woohoo.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I've done both. I guess as I've gotten older, it seems more productive for me to lie down, close my eyes, and think about it. And within a short time, I've got the answer.
Yep.
Now, sometimes I may say to Mrs. Finelli or our son, "Tell you what, yeah, no problem. Let me sleep on it." And literally, that night, I will think about it. In the morning, I'll say, "I've got it."
Yep. Well, that is the secret of creativity.
And it happens with many things, not only wiring and plumbing, but if I've got a problem I can't seem to figure out with an automotive issue, I'll say, well, let me think about it. And then the next morning, I've got, 7 things that I think it is, but one of them I think it really is. And what you're saying makes absolute sense. Can you please continue with what you're telling us? Because this is riveting.
Well, then I spent a great deal of time giving brief views of how to control your feelings, your sensory activity in the body, not just your emotional feeling, but your physical feelings. One of those is autogenic training. I gave them examples of each of these. Talk to the body. My arms and legs are heavy and warm. That puts you into deep relaxation. The opposite of that is something called progressive relaxation, where you tense every muscle group in your body, one group at a time. Make a fist. Tight. You can't, and then let it go. And then make a muscle. And you go through a 30-minute exercise. Of course, I only did 5 or 10 minutes with each of these as an experience. But you get to relaxation by forceful tension. Then there's the American Indian technique of breathing and using your breath to collect sensation from the body, starting at the feet and gradually going through the whole body, so you can actually, like a gentle loving vacuum cleaner, suck sensations out of the body to put it totally at peace. Then the East Indian technique is to breathe through the skin. And I discovered this 30 years ago, that if you imagine you're breathing in and out through the skin of your right hand, you can actually make it numb. And if you practice that enough, you can actually make yourself numb enough to have surgery without anesthesia. And then, of course, everything in the body is electrical. So you can circulate, feel, and imagine the energy flowing from your heels of the back of your body to the top as you breathe in, and down on the front, back through the tops of your feet into the soles as you breathe out. Each of these has a very specific ability to help you manage unwelcome sensations in the body. You can learn to feel the pulsation everywhere from your right ear to your left big toe, and we practice that, of focusing just on the pulses in a given part of the body. This is gaining control. It's what I call sensory biofeedback. And finally, expanding the electromagnetic energy field. We are electrical beings, and we can put ourselves in a cocoon, a capsule, an envelope, starting with 1 inch at the feet and covering the whole body with 1 inch of expanded electromagnetic energy, and then to 12 inches. And when you get to 12 inches, your body disappears, essentially. You're floating in space, but your brain is very alert. And that's the technique I use for inducing a past life therapy situation, of course. But those are sensory trainings that you can develop. And then, of course, there's techniques for balancing emotions. And I have people imagine the worst thing that ever happened to them and let it go. Imagine, recall, relive it just for, 20, 30 seconds and let it go. And after the third one, I have them scream aloud, yeah, pain, pain, pain. And then come to grips with, can it ever make me better to keep replaying the old broken record of pain and convert it to the greatest, happy, loving situation of life? Or we have one where you can go into a private room and talk to yourself and then see your image change into your worst enemy in the mirror, and that's another wonderful emotional balancing technique. We have a whole bunch of these kinds of things. And then, of course, there's spiritual attunement. And we have see yourself go into ancient healing people or climb the mountain to the wisest person in the world, meeting your soul, meeting your personal angel, and, of course, past life therapy and progression into the future. All of these are tools for training the brain. Now, the brain is aged by any kind of stress: smoking, obesity, alcohol, diabetes, inactivity, Roundup, heavy metals. All of these things age not just the rest of the body, but the brain itself. And so, we went through a wide variety of these kinds of mental, visual exercises. And then, of course, I wound up at least giving them a brief overview on the chakra suite PEMF and the results we're getting with narcotic addicts. That really got their attention. I would think 3 or 4 people in the room had friends or family members who were narcotic addicts. So that's a very brief overview of a 90-minute talk.
Dr. Shealy, as you were describing the breathing through the hand, in the studio, I just sat back in my chair. I stretched out my arm, and I told myself I was breathing slowly through my hand.
Mm-hmm.
I could feel, I'll tell you what I felt, and it was probably within less than a minute. I felt the temperature of my hand change from warm to cold, back to warm, and then my hand went numb.
Yes.
Actually, from my elbow to my hand went numb. So I literally was in the studio. Good thing there's no camera. I'm shaking my arms to get the circulation to go back. Now,
well, most people take 20 minutes to do that well, but obviously you've got a trained brain.
Well, that's what happened. I mean, literally, and you and I have never talked about this, and I've never read about this. So is what I described what you would expect? I mean, other than the speed at which it happened to me, other than that, is that what happens? The temperature changes?
Most people take about 20 minutes to get that good. But that just shows you have a trained brain.
Very, very interesting. I think I have a high threshold of pain. Like when I hurt myself, I don't feel the pain. I don't. Like if I hit my thumb with a hammer, the pain sensation that I would feel might be less than someone else who hit his or her thumb with a hammer the same way. But I'm also sensitive to chemicals, medications and things like that. Quite fascinating. So, Dr. Shealy, how does that contrast in the westerns that we used to watch as movies? And a guy might get shot and have a bullet in him, and another guy near him would say, "Okay, put this stick in your mouth. We're going to lie you down, take a swig of whiskey, bite on the stick because this is going to hurt." And they'd pop the bullet out, with a hunting knife kind of a thing. Is that, thinking about that versus what I just did with my hand by thinking about it, I think I'd prefer to do that if I had to have something painful happen to my hand.
Oh, well, I agree. But again, you are an extremely creative person. You've used your brain. You've not abused your brain, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you are a perfect example of how well and good the brain can be. I was watching a video over the weekend about replacing
a fuel pump on a Ford a small SUV. And the fuel pump is in the fuel tank. And so there's this guy who did the video of how to do it, and he owns a company that will come to you. So, for example, in this case, the vehicle wouldn't run. It was not drivable because the fuel pump was bad. And so it wasn't his vehicle. He was showing work on somebody else's. And the vehicle was full of trash. It looked like if someone was in the front seat and they had candy wrappers or soda bottles or McDonald's bags, they just threw it in the back seat. And under the back seat is where the fuel pump was. I'll tell you why I'm telling you this and how it relates to what Dr. Shealy's talking about in just a couple minutes. So I was talking about this YouTube video that I watched about how to replace a fuel pump on a small Ford SUV. And the fuel pump is under the rear seat. And in the video, you see all this junk in the car, and you think, gosh, why would anybody take a video with all this junk in the car? It looked like some guy was homeless living in the car. It looked like McDonald's hamburger wrappers. I'm talking about a bag full of stuff. Ketchup tubes that were used, straws, cups, plastic empty bottles from soda and water. I mean, it looked like someone had just taken a trash bag and emptied out in the back of this guy's car. And it was under the seat, on top of the seat. It was really a mess. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because the car was not taken care of. It was neglected. And what came to my mind is, number one, how could somebody take a video like this and be proud of showing us how to replace the fuel pump? But the other thing that came to my mind was this guy who owns the vehicle or gal is a pig, an absolute slob with the vehicle. And, of course, the next thing that came to my mind is, maybe simultaneously, was that this guy is probably unhealthy as well. Because if he's not taking care of his car, he's probably not taking care of himself. So the question, Dr. Shealy, that I have for you is there some kind of a correlation with people taking care of their vehicles, their property, their houses, and themselves?
Absolutely, Vince. You're talking about, quote, conscientiousness, orderly, organized, responsible people. And interestingly, only roughly 3% of people are optimally conscientious. There's another 10% who are fairly good. So 90% of people in this country lack good health habits, and that means they are moderately irresponsible.
Mm-hmm. I remember when I was younger, in the business of hiring a team to work with me, where I would be the boss, and I would interview some young people who had experience profiles that looked like they kind of fit, and I would say things like, so, we get sort of into the middle of the interview, we get past, qualifications, talk about things they like to do and their hopes and dreams and aspirations, and I would ask them things like, so would you consider yourself, a neat person? Oh yeah. Do you take care of your own automobile? Oh yeah. Vacuum it out, wash it, yeah. Mm-hmm. When was the last time you washed your car? Oh, about a week ago. Okay, great. Let's go look. And that was a deal breaker right there, because we'd go look and the car would be filthy. I'm not talking about, just road dirt. I'm talking about, like this guy who had the fuel pump problem. And, I don't want to bring someone on board who has bad habits, who's not conscientious, why do I want to work with somebody like that?
Folks, why I love this man. He is one of the conscientious, great people in the world. No question about it.
Well, it's all true, and I actually behave like this. And it sometimes it doesn't make for friendships. Sometimes gets people annoyed with me, but I really am like this. Okay, so Dr. Shealy, we were talking about the pulsed electromagnetic frequency invention that you and Lou Cassidy and Sergey Sorin are all part of, and I wanted to tell you that I went for a medical checkup where they did a CAT scan of my lungs. And the senior guy there in pulmonology came in and he was grinning from ear to ear. And he's like, he couldn't believe that I'm getting better. He said, how you doing? I said, I think I'm getting better. My good days are better and my better days are better. And he said, and that's what your CAT scan shows. He couldn't believe it. So there is something to all this, Dr. Shealy. There really is. We'll be right back after top of the hour news and commercial announcements. Everyone all set? Hour number 2 of USA Prepares with Senior USA Prepares Instructor Dr. Norman Shealy, medical doctor. We've been talking about brain elasticity, and we've been talking about getting smarter. And it can be done. But I don't think you can become smarter, from my perspective, by not exercising your brain. By putting your brain in park and just, coming home from work and doing a swan dive on the couch, watching the blue screen flicker, and then waking up the next morning and repeating it all over again, going to work and coming home and doing a swan dive on the couch. I don't think you can gain too much from that as compared to reading and using your mind and becoming inventive. And I'm afraid that many of Americans are becoming more sloppy, more lazy, and yielding to the easy way rather than the difficult way. It's easier to watch TV for many people than it is to read a book. However, when you read a book, you have to use your imagination. You have to use your imagination. And I think that that's really important if you want to be creative. And Dr. Shealy, any comments on that?
You're reading my mind. I totally agree. I consider reading about 1 billion times better for your brain than watching television. I was talking with Charles in Ohio. He was instructing us about engines and thermodynamics and efficiency and things like that. And he mentioned a name that I remember from the past. And the name is Smokey Yunick, Yunick. And Smokey Yunick was a brilliant mechanic, race car driver, and really an innovator in his day. And I decided I wanted to buy some of, they're hard to find, but I found a 3-volume set of Smokey Yunick's books, and I bought them. And I'm delighted to have those books. And it's really kind of funny, Dr. Shealy, because, well, not funny, maybe it's really kind of sad that I love buying books. I've been to a bookstore, and the bookstore will get a set of encyclopedia, and they'll price it at $10. This is the kind of thing that it takes 2 crates and 2 or 3 trips to the car to take them home for $10. I mean, there's more BTUs in the material if you were to burn them than $10 would buy if you were buying wood. Now, I'm not suggesting burning books. I'm not doing that at all. What I'm saying is there's a lot of value there, even for fires. But people don't seem to want to read anymore. I agree.
And it's very, very sad.
I read about 1 book a week. That's my goal.
Mm-hmm. One of the goals that I had for our children, but I did not achieve it, and I'm kind of disappointed in myself. Actually, I'm very disappointed in myself for not making this happen as I wanted it to happen. And that was when I was growing up, we had a used set of World Book Encyclopedia. And there are lots of pictures in there. And for a young person, a World Book is, compared to Britannica, was a very pleasant way of learning. And what I wanted our children to do was every day just read one page. One page. That was one thing. And I wanted our children to learn every day one new word. And I did not achieve that. But I think that would have been a really good thing to do. You have a comment on that, Dr. Shealy?
Oh, absolutely. You know, there's just no question that to keep yourself generally healthy, you have to use yourself. You have to use your brain and your body. And either use it or lose it. It's that simple.
Well, I can prove that what you said is right with myself. For example, when I had a job at the bank and I was designing computer systems, I was meeting with the senior management, and I would have discussions at a pretty high level and designing at a very intricate level. So I was really using my brain building these systems, and they had to work. It's not like I could waste time and say, well, I need more time and more time and more time and never deliver anything. I actually had to deliver. Well, after I left the bank and became a farmer, I was out there in Virginia just talking to the cows, and my vocabulary shrunk. I mean, I could say, come on. I mean, I could talk to the cows, but I could literally found my vocabulary dropping, maybe 1 or 2% a day. And at one point I said, whoa, this is nuts. If, I've got to get back to where I was. So I did. But you're absolutely right about using it or losing it. And on that path, I was reading something yesterday which I thought was really fascinating, and I'd like to actually experiment with this. And there was an article that I found that said exposure to blue light can be effective in lowering your blood pressure. It can be as effective as medication. And it talked about the release of nitric oxide because blue light stimulates, according to this article, the release of nitric oxide relaxes blood vessels. And that relates to, in white light is all light colors put together, like the sun is, white light. If you put all that together, in that white is blue, and blue seems to, according to this article, relax the blood vessels and stimulate the release of nitric oxide, which you can get through eating blueberries, which are good for the circulatory system as well, as I've read. And I was fascinated by this. And at what frequency they're saying 450 nanometers of pure blue light for 30 minutes can reduce your blood pressure. Of course, naturally, I want to try that. Dr. Shealy, what are your thoughts about that? You've talked about blue foods, blueberries, vegetables in that family of color, and color affects, how the body uses the vegetables. And the Alaskan blueberry, the wild Alaskan blueberry, is part of Kayani's Nitro Extreme, which is designed to release nitric oxide, correct?
All of the above is true. Interestingly, on the other hand, full spectrum light has more study behind it, and for treating, for instance, SAD, seasonal affective disorder, one form of depression, which is much worse when there's less bright light in the winter months. Full spectrum light is the usual one, but we're all unique and individual, and so I don't know how blue light differentiates specifically and what the percentages are compared to full spectrum light, but light does affect mood.
So what I was thinking about doing, Dr. Shealy's in the studio, the, 4, 8, 12. The overhead lights in the studio are about 15 feet up in the air.
Right.
And I was thinking that I can, we're using our dining room now as my broadcast studio. And I was thinking about these blue LED lights that I found in China that are 450 nanometers. They're 45 watts. I was thinking about building a driver for them to power them at the proper voltage. And I was thinking about putting them overhead at 15 feet. So I wouldn't be looking up at the blue lights, but it'd be kind of like a floodlight pattern coming down on me in the studio. And I was thinking about building a DC power supply for that and experimenting with, does that affect blood pressure? I was interested to experiment with that. What are your thoughts? Or do you think there's some risks in doing that?
Well, again, I've focused for the last 30-plus years on full-spectrum light, but there is evidence that blue light, on the other hand, I don't know that I want blue light in my room all day. I wonder.
Yeah, no, I don't mean all day. I'm just thinking, I don't spend all day in the studio. I'll come in, do some prep for the broadcast, and I can have a switch on the wall that will, turn this on or off, or even a timer, for example. And I could, give myself 30 minutes or an hour, and off it goes.
That could work.
Okay, I'm thinking I'm going to do that. With this particular LED system, I have to build or fabricate a heat sink because I can get the LEDs, but it doesn't come with a heat sink. So I have to build the heat sink and the power supply. And maybe what I should do is take some photos of it, before and after, how I constructed the heat sink and the final prototype, if you will, or the best prototype, and see if it works. Okay, I just wanted to share that with you. And one of the things that came to my mind as I read the headlines of this article was Billy Rubin. I remember that when people were born, some of them looked jaundiced, kind of a yellow color to their skin, and nurses would put them in. They'd wrap their eyes so they couldn't look up at the light, and it was a blue-colored light.
Actually, it was ultraviolet. In fact, our second child was born with that, and he was treated for 5 days or so with exposure to ultraviolet light.
And non-invasive. No needle pricks.
He was locked up, if you will, at the hospital. So I don't know how many hours they used it.
Yeah, locked up in a small prison. But when a newborn probably doesn't realize that they're locked up in one of these isolates. But it's not like surgery. It's not like there's pain involved. It's just can't escape this plexiglass cell. But it's not like their arms are tied and they can roll over and that kind of stuff.
I found one article on it. I'll read it to you.
Let's talk about that when we come back. Yeah, Dr. Norm Shealy, medical doctor. NormShealy.com. NormShealy.com. Dr. Shealy's with us. Dr. Shealy, did you want to mention anything else about brain elasticity?
This is an article in the journal Concussion, published just October 15th of this year. And it says, evidence suggests that light, particularly in the blue wavelength, has powerful alerting cognitive and circadian phases, shifting properties that could be used for treatment. But also red and green may be equally important effects. So it says, despite the known effects, more research is needed. And so apparently there's a lot of individuality as to which works for whom.
Okay, so that's back to your point that you said prior to the break, full spectrum lighting, because that will contain the red, the blue, and the green.
All of it. And, of course, John Ott is the one responsible for putting full spectrum light on the market many, many years ago, 40 years practically.
Does it say what the full spectrum frequency is? Is it like 6,000 degrees Kelvin, 5,000 degrees Kelvin?
Sorry, I don't know.
Does it say? Okay. What I'll do is I'll research that. I was reading an article about zinc deficiencies during pregnancy is now linked to autism in babies. So not getting enough zinc.
No question.
And I remember when Mrs. Finelli and I were thinking of having children, her doctor put her on a prenatal vitamin.
It contains zinc, I bet.
And mineral supplement. Yeah. And what's interesting about that is not many people were thinking about being healthy to make a healthy child. They're just thinking, have the child and then, then take care of the child, but not building the child as, as healthy as possible from even before the start.
Well, absolutely.
Before conception.
Everything affects everything, of course.
Mm-hmm. So, what are your thoughts on zinc as a supplement? Is it just for those who are, okay?
It's really important, but so is copper. And the ratio between zinc and copper is crucially important. So, basically, you need roughly 5 times as much zinc as you do of copper for optimal health.
Okay, so I just wrote down 5 times as much zinc as copper, and I'm looking for that full spectrum frequency. I have not found it yet.
Here it says at noon the brightness is 5,000 to 5,500 K, whereas the soft warm light bulb in your home have 2,700 to 3,000. Full spectrum mimics daylight at 6,500.
We've been
and it's 6,500
Okay, so
K,
daylight is
6,500 K, and the light intensity is 10,000 lux of the full spectrum light bulbs.
Okay, so what we're saying is daylight, which would be sunlight, is 6,500 degrees Kelvin, or K. And I guess the LED, the closest we would get to LED would be 5,500 degree Kelvin. And I can tell you that we've been experimenting with that in our home. Now, the softer white, which would be more the color of an incandescent light bulb, is close to like 2,500 to 3,000 degree Kelvin. And that, if you're older, that's what you grew up with, and maybe that's what you kind of like. But I can tell you that for seeing and looking at things with at detail level, like if you're in a dentist's office, they're going to want something more like natural sunlight at a higher degree Kelvin, more like 5,000 degrees. But I can tell you in our kitchen, the cabinets look great under 3,000 degree, and I've got them intermixed with 5,000 degree, and the cabinets look washed out. Dr. Norm Shealy's with us, and just as a side detour, there's a company called Cowboy Streetlight Concealments. It's a small company. And what this company does is they make streetlight concealments and camera enclosures. They are in the business of hiding cameras that capture what you do when you're in the area or the field of view of these cameras. And I just wanted to tell you, class, it's outrageous, it's over the top. And who's using these cameras? Well, the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration, known as the DEA, and Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, ICE, are using these. They are hiding cameras in undisclosed covert surveillance systems. They are putting these cameras in streetlights around the country. So when you stop at a traffic light or go under a street light, that's where these cameras may be. Worse than that, if you've seen those orange with the reflective white stripe barrels on the side of the road, alerting you that maybe there's a pothole there, or the shoulder is soft and you can, have an accident if your vehicle goes into the shoulder. Those orange barrels now may contain hidden surveillance equipment that communicates wirelessly with other communications equipment to record what the camera sees. So Big Brother is out in full force, and the government corporations are buying these and hiding cameras, allegedly for your protection. Now, there's some of us who don't want to be monitored. And in the corrupt state of Missouri, we just found out that license plates are being replaced. So I've got perfectly good license plates. They work. They do everything they're supposed to, except they don't have this stripe in them that allows them to be tracked as well as my previous versions. What I'm saying is they're going to replace everybody's license plates in the corrupt state of Missouri with ones that are more able to monitor your travels and where your vehicle is. I object to it. I want to learn how it works, and I will be doing some research on that as well. But just a side detour about what's happening with the corrupt government corporations and what they're doing to us. Dr. Shealy, have any comments about being observed from hidden cameras?
You're attacking the evil empire.
Right. I am.
I still am not certain whether we're going to have a physical civil war. We have a verbal civil war going on right now. Mm-hmm. But whether it's going to become truly a physical war, I wouldn't bet against it.
Mm-hmm. And I just can't imagine what people want. The good old system where if you worked hard, you could become an apprentice, or you could work hard and learn more and more and more, and then you could become kind of a leader in that field, and then you could teach others, and that's the way it used to work. But now, who wants to do that? It's too hard. Way too hard. That's the way we do it here. But I refuse to be a victim. I just absolutely refuse to be a victim. I have a response. I bought something on the internet. I bought a book set. Let's see if I can find my response. Okay. So I bought this book set. It was Smokey Yunick's Garage. It's called The Best Damn Garage in Town. And it's a 3-volume set, and it's rare. Pretty rare. And I bought it not as an investment, but I bought it because I wanted to learn the information. So the guy that sells it to me, we agreed on a price. The price was $150 shipped for 3 books. And to me, that's kind of a lot. And they were old, but they were in perfect condition. And it comes with a case. So the 3 books go in this fiberboard case. And this guy and I agree on $150, shipping included. Then he changed his mind. Then he wants more money for shipping. And I agreed reluctantly. And what he did was he put it in a flat rate box with no packing at all. And so this very heavy book set rattled around in there. And the case was banged up and split. So he sent me an email, and he says, quote, "Hello, I hope you're satisfied with your delivery. I would really appreciate you rate me for this transaction, as I'm trying to build up my store ratings. Also, if you have any tips, please let me know. Thank you again." My response, quote, "No, I'm not happy with this purchase. Number one, we agreed on a price of $150, including shipping. Then you did not honor that agreement, saying that you made a mistake. Number two, then you put the heavy 3-volume set in a box without packing nor padding, and it was damaged in shipment. This is a semi-rare limited production set. How about you honor our original agreement of $150? You were careless with my property. Once I paid for it, it was mine. I trusted you to pack it properly. You don't deserve high ratings as I see it. What do you think? That was my response.
Good
what
on
I'm saying,
you,
Dr.
and I bet you he won't agree.
Well, he hasn't responded, but it's only been 3 days. Now, the point is, people seem to want instant gratification. Rank me highly and well for something I didn't do. And I object to carelessness, Dr. Shealy, in class. I do. You know, the minute that I paid for it, it was mine. It happened to be in his possession, but he should have taken care of it. But he didn't. So what am I going to do? Now, I can walk away and say, it's too much trouble to give this guy the rating he deserves. No, I'm going to make sure he gets the rating he deserves. And I think we all need to do that, class. I really mean that. Take the time out and help other people from making mistakes like I made by trusting this guy. So now I'm getting to the point where my trust seems to be something that I want to release very slowly. I don't want to give it away. I want to release it when it's earned. And I've become like this. I didn't start out like this. I used to trust everybody. But the more bruises, scars, and burns I have from misusing the trust that I've been giving out, the less likely I am to give it out. And Ronald Reagan said it, trust but verify. He was right. He was absolutely right. Oh, we trust our enemies. We just want to verify it. He's absolutely right. Any comments, Dr. Shealy, on that?
You're right. Of course.
Okay.
It's hard for us to disagree.
Okay. So there's an article that I think we need to talk about. It's medically related. Headlines. Daily Mail. Turkey salmonella outbreak sparks panic weeks before Thanksgiving. 1 dead, 63 hospitalized, more than 100 sickened by meat bought across the U.S. The CDC today, and this is published November 8. CDC today announced a recent spike in infections from raw meat, even pet food. Salmonella is the bacteria that's offending it. It's been traced back to various products sold across the U.S. in the past year. So it looks like we need to make sure that if we're going to have turkey for Thanksgiving, we need to cook it well. And my understanding is 165 degrees Fahrenheit is the internal temperature that a raw whole turkey must reach to kill the bacteria. Your thoughts, Dr. Shealy?
Yeah, no question about it. Let's face it. Serious illness and death occur from contaminated food, especially meat, but also dairy products. Those are two of the top ones where, killing bacteria can happen.
My grandmother did something that I found unusual, but I was very young, so I didn't know very much. And I'm talking in the 1950s. So I was born in the early 50s. And so toward the end of the 50s, I'd be in the kitchen with my grandmother. And if she bought meat from the butcher shop, she would wash it in salt water. Literally, she'd wash the meat. And I didn't understand that. And she said, it's dirty. It's dirty. So she knew that saline solution would help kill some of the bacteria on the meat prior to cooking it. You never see that, Dr. Shealy. You never see that today, right?
Oh, no.
Was she wasting her time, or was this something that made sense?
Well, there's no question. Just water alone, washing it would wash out some of it, and certainly the salt would help increase that. So yeah, I think she was smart.
Okay. So for Thanksgiving, class, if you're going to have a turkey, which many do, and for Christmas, when you have family and friends over, I suggest that you look up some instructions to, you can find them on the internet, or you can find them in your cookbooks, to handle that meat properly. And you have to wash your hands, too, because we have purchased packaged chicken in one of those, packages, fresh chicken at the store, put it in the refrigerator, open it up a day or so later, and it smells rotten. Okay? It smells really bad. So in the fire it goes. So be really careful and make sure that you cook your turkey and your chicken very, very well. Wash your hands at least 20 seconds. At least 20 seconds to get off most of the bacteria. We'll be right back. That he thought were infinite. One was the universe and the other was stupidity. And he said he wasn't so sure about the former. But he was sure about stupidity being infinite. And here's one example of it. Human drugs are flowing into the waterways. The animals that live in the waterways and the plants are consuming drugs, painkillers, antidepressants, and other drugs that humans take, and after excreting them, get flushed into the municipal sewer systems, and they are not removing them. Okay? So now we have aquatic life that is living in a stew of chemicals, medicines, if you will, that we flush down the toilets. Now, in Australia, there was a study that was done, and they looked for 98 different medical drugs between the years of 2014 and 2015. They found 69 of those drugs in the 98 that they were looking for. So in the water, there are insects, and there are spiders and trouts and platypus and so forth, and all of these life forms are consuming these human drugs. And so what are the most common drugs that are found in the insects? Tramadol. That's a form of synthetic opiate. Codeine. It's and an antifungal drug. And high blood pressure medication called metoprolol. And an antidepressant. Those are the ones that they found the most. It is absolutely crazy that we are poisoning our own food supply and water supply by doing this. Dr. Shealy, what are your thoughts? Is there a way out?
Well, not as long as we have government, because government is responsible for fluoride in our water and all kinds of other poisons, including glyphosate. So why would we trust them for anything?
Well, I agree with you. I don't trust government corporations for anything. Absolutely nothing, especially when they say they're here to help. You know, when a government corporate employee comes to our farm, I know it's about no good. They're not up to anything any good. Well, they want to track, spy, record, monitor, annotate, whatever that's all they do. They're in the way, but it sure would be nice if they got something right. And I'm very concerned about what's in our water, because we are literally flushing it down the drain, and we are and water. There is within a very, very, very small percentage. The water supply is finite on this planet. Finite. That means that we are reusing the same water that was used thousands and thousands of years ago. Actually, since the beginning of water. We're using the same water. The same water. Absolutely true. So we need to be careful. We can't use our oceans as a dump. But that's what municipalities do. They just collect trash removal. It's actually a trash relocation system. It's taking the trash, now it's out of your sight, and it's in the ocean, or it's in a big pile somewhere. Very quickly, I want to tell you why I'm saying this. Because I was near St. Louis, and I was really hungry and thirsty. And I would not stop to eat near St. Louis. As a matter of fact, I made it all the way home, 3 hours, because I didn't want to drink the water or eat the food from that area, because there's a toxic burning waste dump there. It's radioactive. The Westlake landfill. Any comments, Dr. Shealy?
I'm with you all the way. All city water is toxic.
There you go. Absolutely.
St. Louis is the most toxic city in the country.
Thanks so much for being with us, Dr. Shealy.